Well, g'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Gospel Freedom Podcast. This is the first episode of the 1001 series, and it's titled Being in the World, but Not of the World. And if you're wondering why this sounds a little bit more, what's the word? Peaceful, tranquil, but not, just stale audio recording with a fancy microphone, that's because I'm outside on a glorious morning in December. And I thought this is the best way to do it. Otherwise, I just won't do it. I just won't record it because I'll think I'll have to get it right a certain way. I have to edit it and fine tune it. See, there it is, a mistake right there. And so I just thought, I keep putting it off. I keep trying to do it, and I just thought the best way to do it, so that you people can enjoy it with slightly less good quality audio, but a still enjoyable experience, is to have slightly less good quality audio with background sounds. Nice background sounds. Birds in the background, the occasional car passing as if on cue. And maybe you'll hear my footsteps as well. So, it's, like one of the Twitter spaces I used to do, but in actual good quality, because the Twitter space did the compression stuff. So my voice would sound crackly and stuff. Now it doesn't. So yeah, anyway, this is the point in studio where I cut to what's coming right up. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them, because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Our citizenship is in Christ, in the new heaven, the new earth. That's where our hope is. Choose which things you want to be part of, which ones you don't. Which things are leading you towards Christ, and which things are leading you away. So, we're back now. Obviously that was just a good cut right there, because my editing skills are so fantastic that I can just insert future audio in the present, because that's just how editing works. But I want to talk about being in the world and not of the world, because that's what Jesus calls us to do. Now, I probably should have done a little bit of preparation. I tend not to do this. I tend to just go with what I say and then sort of look up a Bible verse as I'm doing it. But the thing is, since I'm basically doing this live, I'm not going to cut anything out unless I make an egregious mistake and realise it. So I'm going to have to find the verse as I'm walking. But that's quite an interesting perspective. Being in the world, but not of the world. And if you're wondering why I sound like this, it's because I'm a little sick, a little under the weather, a little poorly, a little ill. But I think I'm alright. And also, an interesting quality to my voice. Something different, something you might not have heard, because apparently I'm Mr. Pristine, according to no one but myself. Should have cut that one out. Or should I say, should cut that one out, but I won't, because that's not what I do. So, being in the world, not of the world, being in the world. I'm very, very terrible. I'm terrible at typing on my phone. I'm just not good with touch screens. I much prefer a physical keyboard. Right, so now, it's, here it is. It's John chapter 17, verse 16, according to what I've just searched up. And now actually go to the Bible, or the Bible app in this case. I was one chapter behind. I was like, hang on, that's not there. It was 17:16, not 16:17. Right, well, that's quite a good passage. Should I read all of it? In the New King James Version? I'll just read from verse 9. This is Jesus speaking, by the way. I pray for them. I do not pray for the world, but for those whom you have given me, for they are yours. And all mine are yours, and yours are mine, and I am glorified in them. Now I am no longer in the world, but these are in the world, and I come to you. Holy Father, keep through your name those whom you have given me, that they may be one as we are. While I was with them in the world, I kept them in your name. Those whom you gave me, I have kept. And none of them is lost except the son of perdition, that the scripture might be fulfilled. But now I come to you, and these things I speak in the world, that they may have my joy fulfilled in themselves. I have given them your word, and the world has hated them, because they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. I do not pray that you should take them out of the world, but that you should keep them from the evil one. For they are not of the world, just as I am not of the world. Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. As you have sent me into the world, I have also sent them into the world. And for their sakes I sanctify myself, that they may also be sanctified by the truth. That was up to verse 19. And that's Jesus praying, I should say, talking to God. So, let's go back to 9. I pray for them, but I do not pray for the world. Right? So what does that mean? What means that Jesus is not saying, hey look, you know what everyone, you just get a free pass here, you know? Everyone gets in, no one gets out. You know, I'm just Mr. Nice Guy. No, he's saying you have to be a disciple of Jesus. But it's interesting, as we hear the pigeons coo, what Jesus says. Because he doesn't just say the disciples, right? He says they're in the world, but they're not of the world, right? They're in the world, but they're not of the world. You know, what does that mean, right? It's like how to explain, you know, that we're not residents or citizens of the world, you know? Our citizenship is in Christ, in the new heaven, the new earth. That's where our hope is. And so it's making the distinction between rejecting Jesus, just taking the physical elements of the world and being bound to them, and being, you know, on the earth, right? But not part of that, being above that. And I don't mean above that in a spiritual Gnostic sense, like, oh, I'm just a soul, I'm just, you know, some kind of, you know, immaterial entity. No, that's not what this is saying. This is saying that although we're in the world, you know, we're not partaking in what the world does. You know, we exist in a place, but that doesn't mean that our identity is shaped by what the world's identity is shaped by. And that is particularly important when it comes to what the world celebrates. And every year, on December 25th, or around then, there has been a celebration. Now, lots of people are going to jump up and down and be like, oh Mitchell, that's Christmas. I went into that last year, not completely. But if you've read some of my blog posts, you'll know I am not a fan of calling it Christmas. I'm a fan of calling it paganism, and the reason is that it's not Christian. It doesn't come from any Christian tradition. Everything that has been said about it is pagan. The tradition of celebrating something on the 25th of December is a pagan tradition. Now some will say, oh, well maybe that's because of this or that or whatever, and you know, we reclaimed it or whatever, or claimed it or something. As Christians, that's just not true. That's not what happened at all. And I could go into it. As I release this, if you read my blog post, most recent one, my second last social media response, I almost said review. I never remember what my own blog post is called, because it is properly a mouthful. Because I've decided social media is not quite a good thing. Anyway, I try not to do real-time references I was like, I'm gonna hear a bit more cars. So I'm gonna cross a busier road, and then I'll break for a bit. Got to get something done, and then I'll come back for some more. But what I said there was that if you actually look into the history of where these things come from, you look at things like the so-called Santa hat, right? These things come from various cults, various pagan things throughout the years. And if you go too deep, as I probably did, because there was a Christian woman who posts like all her research and all her different things on the pagan celebrations. It is so dark and so evil. And as I wrote, from the Bible, I don't remember exactly which book says it, but we are to dwell on whatever is lovely and good. I think it's one of Paul's ones. I think it's Corinthians. I think it's 1 Corinthians. I did write it yesterday, so I should remember. But that's what we should be thinking about. And there is another passage, another verse, which talks about not thinking about the evil things, because you can fall into a trap of just worrying about that. As I wrote, I know I like to quote myself, but I just want to. I'm not unknowingly repeating myself. I do know I am repeating myself here. So if you have read it, well, you'll know. If we hate evil more than we love God, then that's a problem, right? We shouldn't be doing that. Loving God is our first priority. Back to the little side note about the real world references. I'm trying not to do those because I want you to just sort of listen to whatever podcast you like and not listen to a reference and it's like, oh, it's a reference to that one, unless it's clearly a series like this is in the Christianity 101 series. These lights are taking a while. That's okay, more time to talk. I try not to do those, so you can listen to whatever you want and you don't have to worry, because that's what annoys me. Side note about YouTube is that so many people create YouTube content as like a TV show, and like you can't just watch one thing. It's always like, oh, and there's like some reference to a prior thing, and that annoys me because that's not what it's for. You're meant to be able to watch whatever video you want, and that's it. Anyway, lights should be green now. Perfect timing. So, yes, the paganist period is particularly important because we have to make a decision as Christians who we're going to listen to, really. Do we listen to people that tell us that this is a Christian celebration, or we're going to listen to the actual truth of the matter? And it's really complicated because the Bible makes it abundantly clear that, food offered to idols, pretty sure that's in that same 1 Corinthians passage. Or maybe it's a different book. I can check the break and come back and tell you all the corrections. Because I'm nearly there. That it doesn't matter. Like, it's whatever your conscience feels is important. And what things you think you can handle. And so it's really hard to explain it because so many of these traditions are so far distant from the pagan origins. Like, it's not obvious. And so you have to be a little bit conspiratorial. I don't mean thinking conspiracy theories. I mean thinking as what's happening as a broader part of the whole. You're looking at, oh, this hat is turning up on like an Argentinian passport. Why is that there? You just think it's a Santa hat, and Santa it's like a Coca-Cola invention. It's a mixture of St. Nicholas and things like that. It's like that's not what's happening, guys. Other issues of not to be in the world, but I just thought I hadn't properly addressed the whole Christmas thing in a podcast, so I'll do that anyway. I'll be back with more in just a moment. Welcome back, dear listener, to the Gospel Freedom Podcast. Not that you ever left, though, but it was I that left. And I have returned with my notes. So we have a little addendum. Addendum, is that the word? To the first half. So it's Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. Which is to think of whatever is good. Whatever is noble. I want to find the as I almost fall over, but I didn't. God lifted me up. The New King James Version. I'll just find that one and read that to you. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, and if there is any virtue, and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. And so often now, meditation has that pagan, Gnostic connotation. That's what we should be thinking about. And the other passage is Ephesians chapter 5, verse 12. New King James Version. For it is shameful even to speak of those things which are done by them in secret. That's of course referring to the evil people. You know, the cults and the cabal, the higher-ups when it comes to evil. In fact, I should probably read in context with the previous verse, which is, and have no fellowship with with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them. This just seems it's a bit of a contradiction, the next verse, to say, for it is shameful even to speak of those things which are done by them in secret. It's like, so we should expose those things, but not speak of them. It's as if we are to not to dwell on them, but just simply to say this is what's happening, and just say this is evil, and and move on, right? And then people can choose what they want to do, whether they want to continue in that evil, or they want to acknowledge it and not do it. And I want to talk about not just pagan mass, Christmas, whatever. I want to talk about how we can actually be in the world, but not be of the world. And I think an important part of that is to acknowledge the distractions, the psyops, which are psychological operations, essentially manipulations of your psychology, the way you think. We have to acknowledge it. As I walk past one of those fake churches, have a guess which one it is. It says Jesus, the reason for the season. Interesting that they say that, yet I don't always believe it. It's the Uniting Church, by the way. I'm near now to the end of my walking journey, and such a natural conclusion to the podcast is here. I was already making that point, which is how do we do it? How do we not live in the world? Sorry, how do we live in the world but not be of the world? First step, acknowledge those things that are just evil. Second thing, acknowledge the psyops and the distractions. So acknowledge, the TV, the movies, the video games, the fashion spectacles. We do our best not to be defined by them. Some of them, perfectly innocent bits of fun. Some much more nefarious, and that's where there's discernment required. And so that's where you have to really think about what's going on and choose which things you want to be part of and which ones you don't. Which things are leading you towards Christ and which things are leading you away. And I wish I could give you a list. Probably could give you a list, but that's just for me, right? And some things I don't watch because I just know they're just nonsense. They're just trying to push a particular agenda. And the purpose of them is not just as a distraction, right? There's a psychological manipulation element, such as, particular movies and TV shows that, like Handmaid's Tale or what was that, Lucifer one, right? So there are, quite a few where, there will be a particular agenda being set. If you hear me sort of cutting in and out, or me making some editing, that's because there were a few people around, and just thought, let's not always have something to say. Let me think for a moment. Let me use that time to, meditate on the words, and also that's why I didn't talk, and then also why I cut it out so you don't just listen to nothing. So whilst it's nice to hear what's going on, it's not always necessary to hear just background. So as a lesson, what can we take away from this? You've completed the first class as a baby Christian. Now you're up here. So read the Bible. Look what you've got in your life and see how it matches with Jesus, and see what things are just there, what things are taking you to Christ, and which things are taking you away. And that is how you be in the world, but not of the world. Thank you for listening. Goodbye, and God bless.